All right, so we are at Luke chapter 20. And once again, it's a great chapter. Well, hello.
Yes, it is.
Hey.
We just started.
Okay. What chapter are we on?
We're on Luke chapter 20.
Okay. My hubby in there.
Hello.
Hello.
Might have to go out somewhere.
Go out back to there. Tell me when.
Well, I'm way. That's way. There you go. See if you can turn it your way a little bit, Nick.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. I think we're ready.
Okay.
Big drinkers, coffee cups, water cups.
Okay. Luke chapter 20, verse 1. Now it happened on one of those days, as he taught the people in the temple and preached the gospel, that the chief priests and the scribes, together with the elders, confronted him and spoke to him, saying, "Tell us, by what authority are you doing these things? Or who is he who gave you this authority?" So you're going to notice that it wasn't just the chief priests, it was the scribes together with the elders, everybody, all the people in authority were confronting him on this. And they're just lambasting him, like, "Who gave you the authority to do this?" And he answered them and said to them, "I also will ask you one thing. Answer me. The baptism of John, was it from heaven or from men?" And we all know that John the Baptist was brought down to herald the coming of the Messiah, who was none other than his cousin Jesus, right? And they all knew this. Everybody knew that John the Baptist was a prophet. They knew that he was there. They knew exactly who that he was heralding, that he was heralding Jesus Christ. And John the Baptist was extremely popular with the crowds for what he had to say, because he was preparing the hearts. He was getting people to repent. He was saving souls. He was very busy in his short-term prophecy. And they reasoned among themselves, saying, "If we say from heaven, he will say, 'Why then did you not believe him?' But if we say from men, all the people will stone us, for they are persuaded that John was a prophet." So they answered that they did not know where it was from. So they knew exactly how popular he was. And they knew that he was a prophet, well believed by the people. And they didn't want to do anything to get stoned to death by the masses, which is pretty amazing. And Jesus said to them, "Neither will I tell you by what authority I do these things." So he's like, "Yeah, you can go ahead and ask me all these questions, but you can't even answer this one. Well, I'm not answering yours either. I'm not telling you anything." Verse 9. Then he began to tell the people this parable. A certain man planted a vineyard, leased it to vine dressers, and went into a far country for a long time. Now, at vintage time, he sent a servant to the vine dressers, that they might give him some of the fruit of the vineyard. But the vine dressers beat him and sent him away empty-handed. Again, he sent another servant, and they beat him also, treated him shamefully, and sent him away empty-handed. And again, he sent a third, and they wounded him also and cast him out. Then the owner of the vineyard said, "What shall I do? I will send my beloved son. Probably they will respect him when they see him." But when the vine dressers saw him, they reasoned among themselves, saying, "This is the heir. Come, let us kill him, that the inheritance may be ours." So they cast him out of the vineyard and killed him. Therefore, what will the owner of the vineyard do to them? He will come and destroy those vine dressers and give the vineyard to others. And when they heard it, they said, "Certainly not," because they knew that he was talking about them. And he looked at them and he said, Well then, what then is this that was written? The stone which the builders rejected has become the chief cornerstone. Whoever falls on that stone will be broken, but on whomever it falls, it will grind him to powder. And the chief priests and the scribes at that very hour sought to lay hands on him, but they feared the people, for they knew he had spoken this parable against them. Okay, so we've gone over this parable before when we covered this. I believe it was in Mark. And this is a very powerful parable because, of course, he's when the Father sent his Son to the world, he was not received by God's chosen people. He was rejected and he was killed. And he's telling them this, he's foretelling the future, and they're like, certainly not. They're trying to completely deny it, but he's like, then he goes into the cornerstone. Whoever falls on that stone will be broken, but on whom it falls, it will grind him to powder. And he's talking about the chief scribes, the Pharisees, all these people that are rejecting him, that are going to ultimately kill him. They're going to get theirs. They're going to have eternal damnation for what they've done. And you notice here that they want to kill him right then and there, but the people at this point, they are very supportive of him.
Yeah. It's very, very popular with the people and very unpopular with the status quo.
Absolutely.
They had a system that was financially working well for them, and
Right.
the truth didn't matter to them at all.
That's right.
I love that next line. So they watched him and sent spies who pretended to be honest. Who pretended to be honest. So that tells you how those guys were. Not honest.
No, they were not.
They had been conditioned for a couple hundred years so that they had the people believing that they would Christ would come in a form that would wipe out the Roman tyranny. And so that's what they were looking for. And so it made it hard because they had set the stage like that, it made it hard for Jesus to come the way God intended for him to come.
Right.
They were brainwashed.
Definitely.
And they were surprised. And I'm sorry, I'll shut up.
It's fine. Verse 20. So they watched him and sent spies who pretended to be righteous, that they might seize on his words, in order to deliver him to the power and the authority of the governor. Then they asked him, saying, Teacher, we know that you say and teach rightly, and you do not show personal favoritism, but teach in the way of God in truth. So let's start with that. So they're buttering him up and they're flattering him. And this is not at all what they believe, but this is what they're saying to him.
Tending to be righteous.
Yeah.
And then they say, is it lawful for us to pay taxes to Caesar or not? But he perceived their craftiness and said to them, why do you test me? Show me a denarius. Whose image and inscription does it have? They answered, Caesar's. And he said to them, render therefore to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. So they weren't able to capture him. They were trying to get him to say, oh no, you shouldn't have to pay taxes. You should just give to God. And they were trying to catch him on this. And Jesus wasn't about abolishing the law, even the law of the Romans. I mean, the taxes did go for a good cause. The roads were being funded, law enforcement, different things like we have today, they had then. They established all these things. And he's like, I'm not telling you guys not to pay. You know, you live in this land, you pay the taxes of this land, but also you need to give to God the things that are God. So not only do you need to pay taxes, You need to tithe. Verse 26. But they could not catch him in his words in the presence of the people. And they marveled at his answer and kept silent. And you'll notice what is funny about these guys is they always marveled at his answer and kept silent. He always knew exactly what to say to shut them up.
Well, they had big meetings trying to decide how are we going to trap him.
Mhm.
Yeah, if we bring up taxes, that's unpopular with the people, but it's also against the law. We'll have him on charges against the Romans because he's
Right.
speaking against taxes. So they knew they thought they had him either way.
Right.
Yeah.
And most of their sacrifices and gifts to God were given to the people by God, like the, sheep and lambs and doves and
Their sacrifices.
yeah.
Yeah. And then their tithe, they gave
And then
10%.
their tithes, they give to 10%
to
of
the synagogue.
the
Yeah.
synagogue.
Yes.
That's my 10 cents worth.
Your denarius worth. Verse 27. Then some of the Sadducees who deny that there is a resurrection came to him and asked him, saying, Teacher, Moses wrote to us that if a man's brother dies, having a wife, and he dies without children, his brother should take his wife and raise up offspring for his brother. Now there are 7 brothers, and the first took a wife and died without children. And the second took her as a wife, and he died childless. Then the third took her, and in like manner the 7 also, and they left no children and died. Last of all, the woman died also. Therefore, in the resurrection, whose wife does she become? For all 7 had her as a wife. So first of all, the Sadducees are people that did not believe in the resurrection in any way, shape, or form. They just felt like when you died, you died. So basically they're questioning him on something that they don't even believe in. They're just trying to mess with him. They're giving him something so preposterous in this whole, 7 brothers died and each one of them had her as wife. It's like, it's just ridiculous, this test that they've given him. And Jesus answered and said to them, the sons of this age marry and are given in marriage. But those who are counted worthy to attain that age and the resurrection from the dead neither marry nor are given in marriage, nor can they die anymore, for they are equal to the angels and are sons of God, being sons of the resurrection. But even Moses showed in the burning bush passage that the dead are raised, when he called the Lord the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. For he is not the God of the dead, but of the living, for all live to him. So here we go. Jesus is smacking down the Sadducees with this. It's like, it is definitely a resurrection. And when we die, those who are believers, those who end up in eternity with our Father, it isn't the same as it is here. We won't be marrying up in heaven. It won't be the same as it is down here. We'll be up there serving God. It will be about our relationship with God at that point. So he's pointing to that for them, and he's making that clear that they understand that there is a resurrection, but it's for those who believe, and that the God is not the God of the dead, but of the living. For all.
Matthew makes the point really succinctly. He says, you guys, in Matthew, Jesus says to him, you guys don't know your Bible very well, do you? You don't know your scriptures. There is no marriage in heaven. And so, yeah, he just deflates them yet again.
Yep. Another smackdown. I love it.
Yeah.
Then some of the scribes answered and said, Teacher, you have spoken well. But after that, they dared not question him anymore. Then he said to them, how can they say that the Christ is the son of David? Now David himself said in the book of Psalms, the Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand till I make your enemies your footstool. Therefore, David calls him Lord. How is he then his son? So I want to talk about that a little bit, because we all know that throughout the Old Testament, we hear of the lineage of the Messiah, and it is through David. And yet in Psalms, you'll hear David himself saying, "The Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand till I make your enemies your footstool." So therefore, David calls him Lord. How then is he the son? So David had an understanding of the Messiah, and he wasn't even born yet.
Yeah.
And this is a beautiful picture of David's heart and his faith and his worship. I mean, David was just such a beautiful example of how we need to do it. How we, his Psalms were just so beautiful. Did you have anything to add on that?
Well, I don't know that David really, when he said that, realized that Jesus would be in his lineage as a human. He's fully God, fully human, and he's in David's lineage as a human. But by now, they're getting the picture, and Jesus is David is Jesus' great grandfather, or whatever it is. I don't know how many greats, but that's just when David speaks here. He's just saying, "The Lord said to my Lord," and so David is recognizing that Jesus. It doesn't even have to do with lineage. He just recognizing Jesus as the Messiah, recognizing the Messiah, the position of the Messiah, and he says he said to my Lord, which David is calling the Messiah his Lord. My Lord said to my. How does it go?
The Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand.
So God the Father says to God the Son, sit at my right hand. And it's especially confusing because we know that Jesus is of David's lineage. The human side is fully human, fully God.
Right.
And the human side is of David's lineage. But in this case, we're saying he's recognizing the Messiah. And so Jesus points that out to them. And then he says, sit around until I make the footstool. David thus calls him Lord. So how can he be his son? And so it's a whole time thing. God is outside of the realm of time.
Right.
What David rightly does is he recognizes the God's son, the Messiah, as his Lord.
Yes.
Right.
The deity of both. Yeah.
Okay.
Does that sound right?
Yeah, it's
Sorry,
one of those.
convoluted.
Yeah. Verse 45. Then, in the hearing of all the people, he said to his disciples, beware of the scribes who desire to go around in long robes, love greetings in the marketplace, the best seats in the synagogues, and the best places at feasts, who devour widows' houses, and for a pretense make long prayers. These will receive greater condemnation. Okay, so he's giving that one last bam. That's the knockout punch right there.
Yeah.
He's like, man, these guys, and the scribes are listening to this. So, the scribes are just burning with anger that he's calling them out in front of all the people. He's telling them, man, these guys go around in all their fancy clothes. They just love it when people greet them as respectful titles. Oh, rabbi, oh, teacher. And they have to have the best seats and the best places. And yet they will take widows' houses from them for tithe. They don't pray to have that conversation with God. They pray to be praised for their prayer abilities. And these will receive greater condemnation. So he's like, these guys they're damning themselves to hell by their lives. And it's like, bam. Just, can you picture Jesus saying this about you, and how would that affect you? And you wonder and you hope that it may have turned some of their hearts like, oh man, I don't want to be condemned. But their hearts were so hard that they, to the end, even on the cross, were condemning him. So it's amazing to me.
I just
Yeah.
recently, the last day or two, came across a scripture where Jesus talks about what a proper religion looks like. And it is to watch out for the poor and the hungry and widows. And then he really, this is meaningful here, where he says, you guys go around acting like you're all that and you don't even do the basic thing
Yes,
of taking care of widows and orphans. Yeah.
crazy stuff. Okay, so does anybody have anything that they want to point out? Or any
Yeah,
questions?
there's a little something here that really, really interesting, unbelievable. It says, when Jesus answered their questions, but now this is going to turn it to just a little different situation. But when somebody asks you a tough religious question, how can a living God allow people to starve? If God knows what I'm going to do I have free choice? It says, follow Jesus' example. First, answer the question to the best of your ability, then look for the real issue. And this I've never even dawned on me. They were hurt over a personal tragedy, for example, or difficulty in making a decision. Often the spoken question is only a test, not of your ability to answer hard questions, but of your willingness to listen and care. I never even would have thought of that. So anyway, that was a pretty good footnote. I like that. I had no
That is
idea that
beautiful.
could be what would be going on.
Mhm.
Pretty good.
Yes, thank you. And I think, Bill, that you do a great job of that because you are always willing to give a listening ear and always willing to be that supportive person. So I think that you're a good representative of that. So,
Well, I'll get asked these questions every now and then, and now it dawns on me that really isn't, that's not really what's going on. There's
Yeah.
something more meaningful with that question. So that's so interesting.
it is.
Okay. Thank
Lou,
you,
did
Avery,
Thank you.
so much.
Lou, did you have anything?
Nothing. I agree with Bill. That's an important thing to remember when you're talking with people. A lot of times what they say covers up a really hidden feeling of hurt or some other type of grief.
Yes.
And yeah, you have to go carefully.
Mhm.
Amen to that.